Hey, this is Angela with this week's Living the Shift. The word fluidity is our topic for today, and the meaning of it and how it helps us and during the shift, how to live that and how it integrates with our spiritual journeys. So you might ask, so what's the big deal? What's fluidity? I use this word all the time, and there's so much depth to it in its meaning, especially in where we are right now. A lot of this came to me while I was actually swimming in a pool, and I was doing laps back and forth, and what a great metaphorical thought about this whole thing and how this all came together. But when I get into do laps, right, the first couple of laps, it's my body adjusting to the water, right? So my body's, first of all, at first I find myself, okay, I feel separate from the water. I'm trying to get my breath as I get going, and my muscles are warming up, and so there's sort of like this resistance in the first couple laps, right? And then as I continue on, I notice that my breathing gets more regular and relaxed. My body relaxes into the water, and I allow the water to support me and to be fluid with me, and for me to be able to use it almost automatically to propel me forward and to allow me to continue on. And so once I get in that flow, it's completely easy and almost meditative for me to do swimming and in lap work and stuff, because it's all like this movement all together and this entire symbiosis that's going on. So that's a big, great metaphor towards what we're working towards and how we live this and how we live all of these great ideas and all these thoughts about clearing our minds and going with the flow, and that's what fluidity is all about. And let's talk about that. Where do we hit resistance? We hit resistance. Resistance is created by the ego. Okay, so we've talked about that in so many of my webcasts, and you've seen it, I'm sure, a bazillion places. All emotions of resistance come from the ego. Anxieties, fears, regrets, rejections, resentments, anger, pain, sorrow, guilt, doubt. Anything like that. Anything that causes this friction. And the way I sort of see it in my mind is like this river flowing, that we're flowing down this river. And many times when I'm working with somebody, I will see that sort of like their life as a river. And I can see where there are obstacles. And sometimes I'll see a big, huge boulder. Sometimes I'll see boulders right across. And so there's this little tiny neck for where they can get through. And that's where we have a lot of stuff to work on. But that's what fluidity is all about. And I can't even remember where I saw it. I saw it recently. Somewhere, one of the 500 bazillion things that I get sent or emailed or see up on Facebook on how we are so unaccustomed, because the ego, we've done this awesome job in this 3D existence on when we focus our conscious here to allow the ego to say, okay, I'm going to push my way through this. I'm going to decide from here, from this playing field, how things are going to go. And I'm going to disregard anything that comes from up here. I'm going to disregard, where other messages that might be trying to get through to me and everything, because all I can see is this, and I'm going to make my decisions based on this. And that was the existence. That's the experience we wanted to have. But here's the thing. We've done this for thousands and thousands of years, and we have so just become habitualized into being resistant. How many times do you get into an argument with somebody? That's resistance. That's friction. Anytime you feel friction, anytime something comes to you and you feel like your back sort of stiffen up and you sort of feel like, all right, yeah, I don't really want to, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, right? So first of all, the first step to that is to be able to start looking in the mirror and say, okay, so why don't I want to do that? What's the friction that's coming up? Is it truly because it's something I feel like it's not for my highest and best? Or is it because I have some kind of fear or anxiety? Or is there a purpose that I want to block this out of me? Or I want to, put a boulder in the way, so I have to go this other route? And the more we release that, the wider the channel becomes, the wider the river becomes, and then the more avenues we have available to us. Because sometimes we will just block off one complete neck of that river because of whatever the ego is telling us, for fear, anxieties, or whatever, when that might be the highest and best path for us to take once we get over this little hump in the beginning that we think is sort of what scares us the most. So, there's a lot to this, and I can talk about this for hours on end. But the key is for us to start looking in the mirror. The key is for us to say, okay, well, if I started out to go to A and I'm getting all of these things that are pulling me over to this area over B, maybe I should just allow that to happen. Maybe I should just explore that and see what happens. You know, a great movie, and I've talked about this before, but a great movie that's a comedy that really explores this concept is called Yes Man. It's got Jim Carrey in it. And it's very comical and sort of slapstick, but it is very funny. And the whole thing is about, you know, he gets into this thing where he has to say yes to everything, or he feels like he has to say yes to everything. And he was very resistant. He was very negative, and he didn't like to do anything, and blah, blah, blah. And so it's very, you know, it gets to the ridiculous, right, on some of the things. But every time he says yes, even though initially it looks like some disaster, it looks like some like weird crazy thing, it always works out for the best for him. And so, and you can see his development and how as he continues on, he becomes more and more open, more and more willing to embrace the world and embrace his life and embrace this very moment that he's in. And that's the lesson in the whole thing. And so even though it's like a slapstick comedy, it really has a great lesson in it. So that's really the lesson for all of us is, you know, take a week and say, okay, I'm going to say yes to everything, even if it makes me nuts, or even if I'm like, you know, shaking or whatever, because you'd be surprised how many things we actually don't realize we're saying no to. Oh, well, I don't know, I don't feel like doing that. Or, you know, I said I was going to go to this, but I don't know. Or, well, I had this and I'd rather do something else. So follow the yes and see where it leads you. And the more you say yes, it's amazing how much your heart opens, how much your channels open, how many more avenues open up for you. And if you say, I am saying yes to my ultimate soul's purpose in the highest and best way, with all the grace and ease and balance, harmony and joy and all that kind of stuff, that is what I'm saying yes to. Give it to me, provide it for me, support me. You know, it was funny because I just went to this, you know, I went away in June to Mount Shasta, California. And the whole trip, I did the Pacific Northwest, and the whole trip was very, very healing for me. And at depths I didn't even know I had to heal. But one of the biggest lessons I brought back from there is this entire fluidity, this entire trust. And what comes with fluidity is this trust and faith that you are supported. And that is one thing that was my biggest takeaway, because the veils are so thin out there. It's amazing how everything is so prominent in day-to-day life in that area, and how that are amazing in other places of the world. So somebody had asked me, what's your takeaway from Mount Shasta? And I said, well, one of the biggest takeaways is that, I said, as silly and as, you know, sort of cliche as this sounds, it was sort of like, I feel, one of the takeaways is how supported, is knowing how loved and supported I am every step of the way. I was told, one of my messages was, you know, apparently through this existence, through all my lives and whatever, I've always been a driver. I've always like been this adventurous one, very aspiring, you know, list of lessons I wanted to learn. And so, yeah, I've got myself in deep in many of them apparently. But I've been always the driver, and I was the one in the lead, and I'm always the one taking, you know, pushing ahead. And so I was told that as a gift, and many of us who are here today, we are all a part of that. We've all been those drivers, because we're here to be facilitators of the change, you know. So what I was told is, as a gift, now it's time for you to take the passenger seat and enjoy the ride, enjoy the scenery, enjoy every moment. And you know, it's funny because that sounds really easy, but when it's somebody who's really, when you're somebody who's really used to driving in your life, that sort of takes you aback, and it takes some retraining, you know, especially, I guess, if I've done it for many, many, many lifetimes as well. So the key is to realize it is a gift, and that we are supported, and that we have a fantastic, all of us have a fantastic support group, our higher selves, that can see the whole playing board, that can see the whole game, and all of our guides, our guide family, and that we can trust in Creator, in our higher selves. We can trust that it is, if we set the intention that all I want is for to achieve my ultimate soul's purpose in the highest and best, most positive way, that is where we'll be taken. And all you need to say is, I trust I have faith. I am fluid to what this takes me to or where this takes me. Just show me the next step. Take me to the next step and learn how to do one step at a time. That's been my lesson. Wow, it's a huge one, but it's awesome when you can do that because there's so much joy in the moment when that happens. And so when you can have trust, it's almost like going back to that childlike wonderment that, so you hear so many people talk about, right? It's like that trust you get of being a small child of, okay, I'm totally taken care of. I am just going to play and have happiness and joy and excitement and love this moment right now. I'm not going to worry about anything else. That is complete fluidity. That is how we live the shift. That is how we start to enjoy our lives and open our hearts and take ourselves to the next level of what you call vibration, of evolution, the next steps on our spiritual journeys. So start becoming more cognizant of that in your life. Start noticing wherever you have friction, wherever your back stiffens up, wherever you get tense about something. And ask yourself why and how can I be more fluid to this? How can I say yes instead of no? Because when your body is tense like that, that's your body's way of saying no. And that's actually one of the basics of kinesiology and test and doing muscle testing and stuff. So when you're ready to let it go, you say, okay, my body's, what is going to open up my heart and open up my body and allow me to flow in the non-physical as well as the physical so that I can enjoy this ride, so that I can be the passenger and enjoy this awesome scenery, enjoy the beauty of what we have right here in this very moment. Even you can find beauty in some of the most sublime things. So when you can take your eyes off of all of the stuff you're worrying on down the road and you're just so worrying in the moment, you can start looking around you and seeing all the things that you otherwise would miss. You could smell the roses, and that's what that's all about. So on that, I'm going to let you go. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week. This is Angela with Living the Shift.